mentioned during your presentation the importance of a strong ending to exhibits, and you gave a really strong ending to our set of 3 presentations, and thank you for that. There's been a number of questions asked, particularly with regard to how these items are obtained. So I'm just going to run through them. First one was to Jean. How were you able to track down such a diverse range of items and from seemingly all corners of the world?
So, yeah, thanks. Joe, are you going to make everybody a panelist so we can see everybody?
I was going to after the questions are answered.
Okay. So I have lots of feelers out for COVID-19. So I'm involved in a stamp chat board online called Stamp Boards. I have I'm in a Facebook group for sort of pandemic philately, and I have made connections with people all over the world who are also collecting COVID. So they know that I'm collecting it, and they sort of they feed me information about, new issues that are coming out. And every day I search on DelCamp. So DelCamp, I've got, sort of keyword searches that I do every day, or I have saved searches that pop up as well. So I mean, you have to be pretty proactive, but I've been able to collect such a variety of elements because they're actually being produced by different countries. There's not only stamps, there's postcards, like postal cards with printed indicia. There's slogan cancels, meter cancels. Those are like the meter cancels and the slogan cancels are a bit harder to find because often they're on commercial mail. So you kind of have to have contacts looking out for things for you. The pictorial cancels, I've told you have to kind of keep an eye on different countries, posting or notifying in their bulletins and stuff. So I do check those once in a while, but I also have, I know that friends, if they see something, they'll let me know as well. So yeah, it's just, it's networking. It's just like work, except it's more fun.
Okay, and sort of related to that, in terms of, do you know how many inkjets or government or private meters or postmarks have been produced related to Canada and Canada Post, which are COVID related?
So Canada's actually done 3 different things that are related to COVID. So the first thing they did was they had an inkjet slogan cancel that was bilingual, English and French, thanking healthcare workers. So that started in May last year and went till early September. So, you can collect, it's pretty easy to get examples of that. And there were, if you talk to Bob Thorne, he's got examples from every single sorting center that, I think there were 11 different sorting centers from all different provinces that produce these. And some are obviously much harder to get. But from Ontario, it's pretty easy. So that was the first thing. And then they produced a picture postage stamp thanking, that was the stamp I had on my last slide, the thanks merci stamp. So that was produced and only distributed to Canada Post employees to thank their employees. So every employee got a little packet with 2 booklets of stamps and a little pin and a card from the CEO. So collectors went crazy over those because they weren't able to buy online. And so all, collectors all pinged their, postal employee friends to ask them. And you can see a lot of them were offered on eBay by employees. So that was the second thing. And then the last thing, which they did recently, was they produced postal stationery postcards. So there was a set of 6 different designs that had English first and a set of the same designs with French first. And they randomly gave them out. So one basically to each household. And they were postage paid within Canada so that it was to encourage people to connect by letter writing or sending a postcard. So you could, send a message and just drop it in the mailbox. You didn't have to put postage. A lot of these ended up being mailed, I think. unfortunately, I think a lot of them were probably thrown out by people who didn't realize what they were and thought it was junk mail. And then most of the ones that I've seen that were just dropped in mailboxes didn't actually get a machine cancel. So they just turned up without a cancel. So I had some friends, and I sent a bunch too that actually went to the post office and got a hand cancel. So those are all the official Canada Post items, but there've been also, I have some examples of illustrated ad mail from private companies or charities where they made a printed indicium, like an illustrated indicium that had some picture related to COVID, like somebody wearing a mask or something like that. So I have a few examples of those, but those are not official from Canada Post, so you wouldn't be able to use those technically in the Thematic exhibit.
Thank you. And Lee has added a couple of notes saying that Australia Post announces upcoming special postmarks in their magazine, which is called the Stamp Bulletin. And he's also mentioned that there is a Mars in Pennsylvania, which could be getting a lot of use from people doing thematic Mars collections at the moment. And a question for Derwin. In preparation for your conventions, do you have all the covers and material ready before you leave for the event? And how much time does it tend to take you to organize them?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I do have my covers and anything I need signed or canceled, prepared in advance before I go to the convention. And how much time? Well, it depends what I'm trying to get autographed at the convention. If it's a first day cover, I have to make sure that I purchase it well in advance so it arrives at my home so I can take it to the convention, right? So I have to make sure I do my eBay purchases or Canada Post or United States Postal Service purchases well in advance to make sure I got the cover. If I'm making the cover, it depends on how long I need to make the cover. Usually I can make, design a cover, print it, cut the pieces of paper and fold and paste it into a cover pretty quickly, within an hour or a half hour. The real issue is then getting the stamp on it and finding a post, getting it canceled by the appropriate post office. If it's Toronto before the pandemic was easy, I would just drift it and get it favor cancel at Toronto's first post office, but pandemic times are harder these days. So it depends. The real amount of time getting an autograph at the convention, though, is the time spent standing in the autograph line. Really, for someone like William Shatner, you could be there for 2 to 3 or 4 hours. For someone who was the Power Ranger that nobody remembers, it could be a bit faster, right? Now, although there was one time, though, where I arrived at a convention and discovered there was a philatelic opportunity there that I did not anticipate. I went to the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo, and that weekend coincided with the first day of issue of Canada Post's second Star Trek issue. And so Canada Post had a booth there, and they were selling Star Trek stamps. And every booth at the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo had what they called a passport stamp. You could get these passports and go from booth to booth and get them stamped. I discovered that the passport stamp at the Canada Post booth turned out to be a pictorial cancel that Canada Post had not announced yet. It was specific for the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo, and it had a shuttlecraft from Star Trek on it, the Galileo 7, right? So I thought, I need to get this somehow. So I ran back to my hotel and asked for a hotel letterhead from the hotel staff. They don't put that in your hotel room anymore, ever since the internet. And I told them I urgently needed to write a letter. So they gave me several sheets. So I ran back to the convention, bought the stamps, put them on the sheets, and got them canceled.
Wow, that's a lot of work. Okay, a question for Rob. With regarding to the meter cancels, do you know if they're available as a listing through Pitney Bowes in Canada?
good question. I'm trying to remember where I looked up for the slogan meter. I'm not sure the answer to that one. I would think so, but again, I can't say for sure. I forget that my source that I went for looking for the information. I'll have to look it up again. I don't have it handy to me.
I mean, I collect a lot of meters for my blood collection, and I don't think there's any kind of listing anywhere because the slogans are private, right? They're from the private company. So it's not like Pitney Bowes produces the slogans. They just provide the meters, the canceling machines. But there is a, you know, in your exhibit, when you describe the meter, there's a website that has the information about all the different meter machines and the different types of cancels and stuff. So that's where I get most of my philatelic information about the different meters. But for the slogan part, I don't think there's any kind of listing.
No.
There's also a couple of questions about what's allowed in exhibits. And one of them sort of relates to what you've just mentioned in terms of private cancellations being allowed versus Canada Post or postal items, and how much non-philatelic material is acceptable for an exhibit, and how much of this sort of quasi postal related but not official government postal material.
Rob, non-philatelic material, has to be philatelic elements, if that's what they meant. It's things that moved the mail. It's like, as I said, the cachet wouldn't have been one of the elements that you could use, but the postmark or the stamps, or in the case of where it's the reply card and the stationery that Jean had showed, that's all one element in itself and would be allowed. When I was looking at the question earlier, I thought it was like they were thinking of along that Telesat cancel, like how much of that would be should you have versus, say, commercial. And obviously you're striving for commercial usage, and that's the good points that you use in an exhibit. However, if those favor cancels and so on, if that's the only thing you can find, because sometimes that's the only way I'll find some of these cancels, I'll include them just to cover off that. But as long as you identify it properly as such, then I would say you're fine. Jean, do you have anything to add to that?
So I think, I mean, for thematic class, you have to use philatelic elements, but for display or open class, you also can mix in non-philatelic ephemera, like picture postcards that don't have a printed indicium, or photographs, or even other physical objects and things like that. But that's a different class.
Yeah, different class. Yeah, like my display class exhibit has quite a bit of non-philatelic material in it. But that's when you make your decision as to which class are you aiming for to display in, and then that defines what you can and cannot show.
And suppose you were doing a thematic exhibit that, let's say it was on something like birds, and you wanted to show a map as to where something occurred. Would a map that elaborated on the storyline, would that be considered an asset, or would you try and get a map on a stamp, or how would you deal with those sort of non-philatelic elements?
Where appropriate, you can use maps in an exhibit. Some more so than others. Obviously, your arrow philately showing routes and that sort of thing. Maps are more appropriate. If you're, say, in a topical collection, if your categories are, say, by continents or by countries, and you want to, at the beginning of the section, use it as almost like as a section header, as a start to the section to illustrate quickly where that area is, you could show that.
Okay.
In a thematic exhibit, it's possible, I don't know what the example is. If somebody came up with an example of what they thought appropriate appropriate map would be for a thematic, I'd be interested in knowing and can comment on that.
Okay. Now let's move back to the philatelic elements. And the question of big covers. Would you recommend a horizontal mounting or a vertical mounting to handle covers?
Generally speaking, it's always preferred to have it horizontal, so you're not having to sort of crank your head sideways to see the material. The only time I've seen covers mounted upside down or vertical is when you're showing the postmark. Because the postmark in that case, you're often trying to get that as write up or readable as possible, but that's not the cover that you're showing. It's the postmark. So in that case, if you're showing the whole cover, maybe so, but there's another technique that you can use called windowing, and you can just show cut out a portion of the page that it's being mounted under or on to just show the portion of the envelope that you want. But typically speaking, you always want to see your covers mounted horizontally. And that's why you're seeing a lot more folks going to the 11 by 17 size pages because of the ability to show those very long covers.
Yeah, I have a few larger items where I've put 2 pages together and then spread the items across the 2 pages so that you can put the bigger items without having to tilt them.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to read out the next question. It says, is it okay to reduce the size of items when preparing a virtual exhibit? That way you can fit more on your pages.
That kind of goes back to what I just said there with the windowing. In the real world, it's windowing that you're reducing by. You don't ever want to cut your items or destroy your items in any way. So you would window them. So I guess in a virtual exhibit where I guess it's much easier to get away with these sorts of things or to do these sort of things because you can use photo editing programs to crop. I guess it would be handled like a window, but if that answers the question, I think if that's what they're trying to do, if they're only trying to highlight a particular portion on that cover, I would handle it as windowing it.
But I don't think you should shrink the size of the item to
No.
show it actual size.
No,
Okay.
if that's what they meant, definitely not to shrink it.
Okay.
Or enlarge it.
Oh, right. Okay, Derwin, in collecting comics, have you come across Classics Illustrated?
Oh, yeah, of course. I have come across the Classics Illustrated, and I have several issues in my collection. And for those of you who don't know, the Classics Illustrated was a series of comics that were each of which was based on a classic novel or book, like Three Musketeers, or Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Frankenstein, or War of the Worlds.
Okay. Oh, we've got some nice feedback with regards to the question about reducing covers. It says exactly. So I guess we answered all the aspects of that. A comment on square pages. Any further comment and availability? I can answer that one in that as somebody who used square pages, I sort of produced the exhibit or the layout of it on on 11 by 17 and put it on a thumb drive, and then took it to Staples so I could print it off on 11 by 17 and then trimmed off the pages. That's one way of doing it. Now, how about the panelists? Any other suggestions for square pages?
I honestly don't know where they would have got the paper from. I haven't seen it locally here, but then we don't have a huge selection of pages. But I've seen it. That wasn't the only exhibit I've seen that way. I've seen a few exhibits that were done on square pages, and it's quite interesting.
So I think people either can get the 11 by 17 and trim it down, or you can get, I think you can get scrapbooking paper that's 12 by 12 and trim that a little bit. But I mean, I like to print my stuff at home. I know some people, you know, take the oversized pages at Staples, but I fiddle with my pages, and if I print it, it's not quite right, I adjust it. So I can't do that if I'm constantly going to Staples. So what I do is I print them on regular letter size stock, and then I use, you can actually buy tape, 1-inch wide tape that's like the Post-it notes. So you can, on the back, I put a strip and I put 2 pages together, and I just print each page individually, and then I put the items across on the pages that way. And you can buy 11 by 17 size page protectors. So I only do that for the pages where I have large items, but most of my pages are single pages.
Yeah, I do my own for the 11 by 8.5 by 11, but I do go to actually another firm called Covey's here, which is also a stationery firm, because what I found is that Staples didn't want to use my paper. They didn't like putting any paper that wasn't their own into the machines. So whereas this other stationery store that I go to will do it for me.
Thank you. Okay, and we've had a comment from Jane Sodero with regard to getting that paper saying scrapbooking for the good source for 11 by 11 paper. And Derwin has, in the chat, he's put down the address of the National Philatelic Centre where you can get the Canadian cancellations. So I can read it out slowly. Stamps at canadapost.ca, 133 Church Street, Unit 1, Antigonish, Nova Scotia, B for Bertie, 2, G for Golf, R for Robert, 8.
Yeah, and in addition to the National Philatelic Center, there's the pictorial postmarks as well. Interestingly enough, unlike in the United States Postal Service Stamp Fulfillment Center at Kansas City, National Philatelic Center does not have the local pictorial postmarks. You actually have to send away to those local postmasters to get those. And the pictorial postmarks are listed on the Canada Post website. What you do get at National Philatelic Center are the first day of issue cancels, and you get the postmarks of the capital cities and the major cities of the provinces.
I'm just going to interrupt here because I want to promote people for a little social area because we're way over. It should have been ended at 8:30. But I do want to thank Chris. I want to thank Robert, Jean, and Derwin for volunteering to help out. I really enjoyed all the presentations. And just so you know, Jean, I've been to Penzic War, 1985 to 1991. And I also want to thank Sparks Auctions. They're our sponsor, and you can visit them at sparks-auctions.com. And they got an auction going on today and tomorrow, so check it out on Stamp Auction Network. And I want to thank everyone for showing up, because you guys is what makes it worthwhile, and it's fun to do that. I'm going to end the recording, and I am going to promote people so we can have a brief social section.
Thank you.